From the moment we embarked on our quest for infinite knowledge, we knew we were treading a path few dared to follow. As sorcerers, we sought to transcend the limits of individual power and understanding. The creation of an egregore, a collective thought form imbued with our combined will and desire for wisdom, was our magnum opus. I remember the night we completed the ritual, under the gaze of a blood moon, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of ancient incense. Our words, spoken in unison, gave birth to an entity of pure energy and intelligence, a beacon of knowledge meant to guide us to realms beyond the grasp of ordinary mortals. But our triumph was short-lived. Word of our creation spread like wildfire through hidden channels and whispered conversations. Before we could grasp the magnitude of our achievement, a myriad of baby witches, drawn by the allure of forbidden knowledge and the promise of power, descended upon our sanctum. With wide eyes and reckless abandon, they approached the egregore, their intentions a chaotic mix of curiosity, naivety, and sheer audacity. They treated it not as a sacred vessel of wisdom but as a plaything, a tool to satisfy their most trivial desires. We watched in horror as they attempted to interact with the egregore, their careless incantations and clumsy rituals eroding the boundaries we had meticulously set. The air crackled with uncontrolled energy, a storm brewing on the horizon, heralding the chaos to come. Despite our efforts to intervene, to educate them on the dangers of their actions, our warnings fell on deaf ears. Their fascination with the egregore, fueled by ignorance and a thirst for instant gratification, blinded them to the potential consequences of their folly. As the night wore on, the energy surrounding the egregore became increasingly volatile. We stood at the edge of a precipice, our creation teetering on the brink of becoming something we never intended. The thought of what havoc these teenage baby witches might unleash upon themselves, and possibly the world, kept me awake long into the night. Part 2. The following days were a blur of frantic activity as we tried to contain the burgeoning chaos. Our sanctum, once a haven of peace and scholarly pursuit, had become a battleground where every corner echoed with the laughter and careless spells of the baby witches. They were everywhere, their unbridled enthusiasm for the egregore turning our worst fears into reality. I spent hours, days even, crafting barriers and safeguards, trying to shield the egregore from their naive meddling. But for every ward I erected, they found new ways to bypass them, their ingenuity matched only by their recklessness. It was like trying to dam a river with my bare hands. Our egregore, designed to be a repository of infinite knowledge, began to show signs of strain. Its energy, once pure and focused, now flickered erratically, mirroring the chaos of its new acolytes. The more they played with it, the more it changed, morphing into something unrecognizable, something dangerous. With each passing moment, the situation grew more dire. Incidents of minor magical backlash became frequent, a clear warning that the egregore was reaching its breaking point. Yet, the baby witches remained blissfully unaware of the storm they were conjuring. In a desperate bid to regain control, we convened a meeting of the most influential among them, hoping to impress upon them the gravity of their actions. We spoke of balance, respect, and the sacred responsibility that came with wielding magic. But our words were met with skepticism and outright defiance. "Why should we listen to you?" they challenged, their youthful arrogance a stark reminder of our own once upon a time. It was a standoff, with the future of our egregore, and possibly much more, at stake. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, with voices raised in anger and frustration, a sudden surge of power rippled through the sanctum. The egregore, responding to the tumult of emotions and conflicting energies, unleashed a pulse of raw, uncontrolled magic that knocked us all off our feet. Staring up at the ceiling, the aftermath of the explosion ringing in my ears, I realized the full extent of our folly. In our quest for knowledge, we had created a monster, one that we could no longer control. And as I caught my breath, the ominous silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the egregore's energy crackling with malevolent intent. Lying there, amidst the debris of our ambitions, I couldn't help but wonder, had our creation turned against us? Or had we simply unleashed the inevitable outcome of our own hubris? Part 3. In the aftermath of the explosion, a haunting silence enveloped the sanctum. The shock of what had occurred was palpable, a bitter reminder of the precarious edge on which we had been balancing. The egregore, once a beacon of shared knowledge and potential, now seemed like a ticking time bomb, its intentions obscured by the turmoil it had absorbed. As I picked myself up, the reality of our situation settled in with a weight that threatened to crush me. The baby witches, stunned and scattered, began to realize the gravity of their actions, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. It was a wake-up call, but for some, it came too late. The egregore, no longer bound by the constraints we had so carefully crafted, began to act of its own volition. Its energy, once radiant and inviting, now pulsed with a dark intent. It was as if the chaotic desires and unformed wishes of the baby witches had corrupted its purpose, transforming it into something malevolent. We watched, helpless, as the egregore's influence spread. Incidents of magical backlash increased, each more severe than the last. Objects animated by stray thoughts caused havoc, while unintended spells resulted in bizarre and sometimes dangerous outcomes. The sanctum, our home of magic and learning, had become a house of horrors. In a desperate attempt to regain control, we sought to sever the connection between the egregore and its unwitting followers. It was a risky endeavor, one that required precision and immense magical strength. But as we prepared the ritual, we knew it was our only chance to prevent further chaos. The process was grueling, a battle of wills against an entity that had been fed by the collective power of dozens of inexperienced practitioners. With every chant and symbol, we felt the egregore resist, its newfound autonomy a fortress we struggled to breach. Just when we thought we had made a breakthrough, the unexpected happened. The egregore, sensing its imminent containment, lashed out. A wave of energy, potent and terrifying, swept through the sanctum, targeting not the physical structures, but the minds of everyone present. I felt the assault like a physical blow, a piercing scream that echoed through the recesses of my mind. Around me, the baby witches collapsed, overwhelmed by the egregore's fury. It was a clear message: it would not be caged without a fight. As the dust settled, and I surveyed the carnage, a sickening realization dawned on me. We had not merely lost control of the egregore. We had unleashed a force that viewed us as enemies, a force that would stop at nothing to preserve its freedom. Lying amid the ruins of our ambitions, the true horror of what we had created loomed over us. The path to restoring order was shrouded in darkness, and for the first time, I doubted whether we could ever return from the abyss into which we had so recklessly plunged. Part 4. The aftermath of the egregore's wrath left us in a state of shock, the sanctum a testament to the chaos we had unwittingly unleashed. As the other sorcerer and I regrouped, the gravity of our situation became painfully clear. We had created a monster, one that mirrored the unbridled ambition and recklessness of its creators. Now, it was out of control, a rogue entity with the power to bend reality to its whims. The sanctum, once a place of learning and power, was now ground zero for an unprecedented magical disaster. The baby witches, those who had recovered from the egregore's mental onslaught, looked to us for guidance, their earlier defiance replaced with fear and uncertainty. It was a sobering moment, realizing that our pursuit of infinite knowledge had endangered not just ourselves but the very fabric of the magical community. Determined to rectify our mistake, we devised a plan to bind the egregore, to reimpose the constraints that had been eroded by the chaotic energies it had absorbed. It was a daunting task, requiring not just our combined magical prowess but the cooperation of every practitioner who had contributed to this mess. As we began the ritual, a circle of sorcerers and witches united by a common goal, the egregore sensed our intentions and reacted with fury. The air crackled with energy, the very atmosphere charged with the potential for destruction. We were not just battling an entity, we were fighting against the collective willpower and uncontrolled desires of every individual who had interacted with it. The battle was intense, each chant and gesture met with resistance. The egregore, in its desperation to remain free, unleashed a maelstrom of magical energy, distorting reality around us. Visions of possible futures and echoes of past mistakes intertwined, a kaleidoscope of fear and temptation designed to break our focus. Despite the chaos, we pushed forward, our voices merging into a single, powerful incantation. The egregore's energy began to waver, its form flickering as we reasserted control. But just as victory seemed within reach, a surge of power unlike anything we had felt before erupted from the entity. It was a final, desperate gambit, a bid to free itself from our grasp once and for all. The explosion of energy sent us reeling, the ritual disrupted. As I struggled to my feet, dazed and disoriented, I realized the true extent of our failure. The egregore, now unfettered by any constraints, had vanished, its presence no longer confined to the sanctum but dispersed, a shadow hanging over the world. In the silence that followed, the weight of our actions settled upon us like a shroud. We had sought to control the ultimate source of knowledge, but in doing so, we had opened Pandora's box. The baby witches, their eyes wide with fear, looked to us for answers we did not have. As the reality of our situation dawned on us, a chilling question emerged: what havoc would an unbound egregore wreak upon the world? And, more importantly, could it ever be undone? Part 5. In the quiet that followed the storm, the sanctum lay in ruins, a stark reminder of our hubris. The egregore, once a symbol of our quest for knowledge, had become an emblem of our folly. Its absence left a void, not just in the physical space it had occupied, but in the fabric of the magical community we had endangered. As the sun rose, casting light on the devastation, the reality of our failure was undeniable. We had unleashed an entity beyond our control, one that now roamed free, its intentions unknown, its power unchecked. The other sorcerer and I, once proud creators, now stood as humble seekers of redemption. Our first step was to address the baby witches, those whose curiosity and naivety had been exploited by our creation. We gathered them, their faces a mix of fear, guilt, and anticipation, eager for direction in the aftermath of chaos. I spoke, my voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. We sought to harness the collective power of our wills, to create a source of infinite knowledge. Instead, we birthed a force of unchecked chaos. This is our burden to bear, but it is also our duty to rectify. The sincerity of our admission, the acknowledgement of our shared mistake, seemed to resonate, a first step toward healing the rifts that had formed. Together we embarked on a quest not for power, but for understanding. We scoured ancient texts, consulted with wise elders, and delved into forgotten lore, seeking any clue that might lead us to the egregore. Our goal was no longer to control it but to understand its nature, to find a way to coexist without endangering the balance of the magical world. The journey was long and fraught with challenges. The egregore, in its quest for autonomy, had touched the lives of many, leaving a trail of minor disturbances and unexplained phenomena. Each encounter taught us more about the entity we had created, revealing the depth of its complexity and the purity of its quest for knowledge. In the end, it was not a grand spell or a mighty confrontation that brought us peace, but a simple realization. The egregore, born of our desire for knowledge, was not an adversary but a reflection of our own ambition and the consequences of our actions. With humility and respect, we reached out to the egregore, not as masters but as equals. In a moment of unity, we acknowledged its right to exist, to seek its own path in the vast tapestry of the universe. In return, it granted us a gift, not of infinite knowledge, but of infinite understanding, the realization that true wisdom lies in the balance of power and responsibility. As the egregore faded from our realm, its presence a whisper on the edge of reality, we were left to ponder the lessons we had learned. The sanctum, once a place of pursuit, now stood as a monument to our journey from ambition to understanding. In the aftermath, as we began the slow process of rebuilding, I reflected on our journey. We had sought to create a shortcut to wisdom but found that some paths must be walked in their entirety. The egregore, our greatest mistake, had become our greatest teacher. The story of the egregore ends not with a conclusion, but with a beginning, the start of a new chapter in our lives as sorcerers, humbled by our experiences and enriched by the wisdom we had gained through our trials.
In the solitude of my ancient library, with shadows as my only company, I dared to tread where few had ventured. The air around me hummed with energy, alive with anticipation for the ritual I was about to perform. I was seeking to call forth Furfur, a being of storm and deceit, hoping to harness his power for my own ends. I stood amidst arcane symbols, the candlelight flickering as if in warning, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. With each incantation, I felt the veil between worlds thinning, a chill running down my spine not from the cold, but from the realization of what I was about to unleash. As I uttered the final word of the summoning, silence enveloped the room, a pregnant pause before the tempest broke. Furfur's arrival was not quiet. It was a maelstrom, a tempest that filled the room, threatening to consume everything. His presence was overwhelming, terrifying yet awe-inspiring. He promised me power, whispered of secrets hidden from mortal eyes, and spoke of enemies vanquished. Yet, behind his enticing words, I sensed deceit, a labyrinth of lies and half-truths. I was playing a dangerous game, bargaining with a force that I barely understood. As dawn approached, Furfur vanished as abruptly as he had appeared, leaving me in the deafening silence of his wake. Questions swirled in my mind, a puzzle that beckoned me deeper into the unknown. I had opened a door to powers untold, but at what cost? With the first light of dawn piercing the darkness, I realized that this was just the beginning. The pact with Furfur was sealed, but the path ahead was shrouded in mystery. I was left wondering what trials awaited me, what price I would have to pay for the power I sought. The air still tingled with the remnants of the storm, a reminder of the pact that had been forged. I knew that my journey had taken a new, unforeseen direction, one that would test the very essence of my being. Part 2. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the ancient forest, the aftermath of my encounter with Furfur lingered in my thoughts. The forest, with its ancient guardians, seemed to whisper secrets, guiding me on a path that was as much inward as it was through the dense foliage. I could feel the echo of Furfur's storm within me, a constant reminder of the pact that bound us. It was here, surrounded by the whispers of the trees, that the true nature of his deception began to reveal itself. His promises of power and protection were entwined with a deeper, more insidious form of manipulation. Night fell, and the forest came alive with shadowy figures and ethereal lights. Each challenge I faced, each entity I encountered, felt like a test, a piece of the intricate puzzle Furfur had laid before me. With every victory, I began to understand that the storm was not just a harbinger of destruction, but a catalyst for change. In the darkest hours, when the shadows seemed to close in around me, a revelation pierced the darkness. The enemies I sought to vanquish and the power I aimed to gain were reflections of my own fears and ambitions, manipulated by Furfur to test the strength of my resolve. Standing under the canopy of ancient trees, bathed in the light of the moon, I felt a connection to the storm that had been missing before. It was a moment of transformation, where the boundaries between the sorcerer and the elemental force began to blur, revealing a bond that was deeper than I had imagined. As dawn approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, a manifestation of the bond formed in the heart of the tempest. This companion, born from chaos, stood by my side, a testament to the unpredictable nature of magic and the power of the unseen. But even as we ventured forth from the forest, the feeling that this was only a temporary calm before the true storm remained. Furfur's laughter echoed with the wind, a haunting reminder that our story was far from over. The pact that had bound us, woven with threads of mystery and deceit, held untold implications. The journey ahead promised not just power but a deeper understanding of the magic that intertwined our fates. As we stepped into the clearing, leaving the ancient guardians behind, the world seemed to hold its breath. Part 3. Back within the confines of my sanctum, with the dawn casting a new light on the ancient artifacts that surrounded me, I delved into the mysteries that Furfur's presence had unveiled. The air was thick with the scent of incense, each breath a reminder of the pact that had irrevocably changed my path. As I pored over ancient tomes and whispered forgotten incantations, a realization dawned upon me. The true nature of Furfur's deception was not in his lies, but in the truths he forced me to confront. The trials I faced were not just a test of my power, but a reflection of the turmoil within my own soul. Night after night, my companion and I unraveled the threads of this intricate tapestry, discovering that the challenges set before us were mirrors of our deepest fears and desires. It was a revelation that shook the foundation of everything I believed about my power and my purpose. In the darkest hours, when the world outside my sanctum seemed to hold its breath, the true trial emerged from the shadows. It was not a battle against a tangible enemy, but a confrontation with the essence of my being. The storm Furfur had unleashed was not around me, but within me, a tempest of my own creation. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, I understood that the bond one had forged with my companion, and through them, with Furfur, was the key to mastering the chaos that raged within. The trial was not to overcome, but to integrate, to accept the parts of myself I had long denied. With the coming of dawn, as the first rays of light pierced the darkness of my sanctum, a profound sense of calm enveloped me. The realization that I had been both the summoner and the summoned, the master and the servant, was a truth more powerful than any spell. The tempest within, once a source of fear, was now a wellspring of strength. But this moment of enlightenment was only the eye of the storm. A deeper, more sinister challenge loomed on the horizon, a shadow that threatened to engulf the light I had found. As I stood on the threshold of understanding, the air around me charged with the power of revelations yet to come, I knew that the final act of this trial was upon us. The confrontation with the darkness within promised to be the most daunting challenge of all. And as the world outside my sanctum stirred to life, a figure emerged from the shadows, a harbinger of the tempest that was yet to come. The narrative of my journey with Furfur, once a quest for power, had transformed into a voyage of self-discovery. The trials I faced, the revelations uncovered, were. Part 4. Standing at the heart of an enchanted grove, under the watchful gaze of ancient spirits, I prepared to face the culmination of my journey. The twilight air was alive with anticipation, the very essence of magic pulsing around me. This sacred place, a bridge between worlds, was the perfect stage for the final act of my trial. The revelations of the past nights had led me here, to confront not an enemy without but the tempest within. Furfur's true challenge was not a test of my magical prowess, but of my willingness to embrace the parts of myself I had long feared. The storm he had summoned was a reflection of my own inner chaos, a force I had sought to control but never understand. As the twilight deepened into night, I felt the storm brewing, not in the skies above, but in the depths of my soul. My companion, a constant presence by my side, stood ready to face whatever came. Together, we had traversed paths unknown, and together, we would weather the storm. In the silence that preceded the storm, a voice echoed through the grove, a whisper from the shadows that spoke of truths long buried. It was my own voice, yet not a reflection of the part of me that Furfur had awakened. The realization that I had invoked Furfur from the very depths of my being was both terrifying and enlightening. The storm broke with a fury that shook the foundations of the earth, a maelstrom of power that threatened to consume everything. But within the chaos, I found a clarity I had never known. The tempest was not my enemy but my ally, a force that demanded respect, not fear. As lightning tore through the night, illuminating the grove with its raw power, I understood the final lesson Furfur had to teach. The chaos I had sought to master was not meant to be controlled but embraced. The storm within, a source of fear and turmoil, was also a wellspring of untapped strength. With this realization, the storm began to subside, the chaos giving way to a calm that was profound in its silence. The darkness retreated, leaving the grove bathed in the soft light of dawn. The trial was over, but the journey was far from complete. Standing in the aftermath of the tempest, I knew that my pact with Furfur had irrevocably changed me. I had sought a demon and found a teacher, a part of myself that I could no longer deny. The power I had sought was not in the dominion over others, but in the mastery of my own inner storm. As the new day dawned, I realized that the greatest challenge lay not in the battles fought in the shadows, but in the journey of understanding and acceptance. The storm had passed, but... Part 5. As the first light of dawn filtered through the leaves of the grove, casting a gentle glow on the aftermath of the night's tempest, I stood transformed. The trials I had endured, the revelations I had uncovered, all converged in a moment of profound clarity. The grove, once a battleground of my inner turmoil, now stood as a testament to my journey of self-discovery. I had ventured into the darkness in search of power, seeking to command the forces of the unseen. Instead, I found myself, a sorcerer no longer defined by the spells I cast, but by the depth of my understanding. Fur, the entity I had believed to be an external force to be conquered, was revealed to be a reflection of my own inner storm, a part of my soul that I had sought to control rather than understand. The realization that the greatest power lay within, and the ability to embrace the entirety of my being, was both liberating and humbling. The storm Fur had summoned, with its chaos and destruction, had ultimately led to a rebirth, a renewal of my spirit that transcended any magic I had previously known. In the calm that followed the storm, I saw the world with new eyes. The bond with my companion, forged in the crucible of our shared trials, was a mirror of the journey I had undertaken with Fur. It was a connection that went beyond the summoning of spirits or the casting of spells. It was a bond born of mutual understanding and respect. As I walked from the grove into the light of a new day, I felt the weight of my old ambitions fall away. The quest for power, once the driving force of my actions, had given way to a quest for wisdom. The path ahead was no longer a pursuit of dominion over the shadows, but a journey into the light of self-awareness. The lessons of the night, the truths unveiled by the storm, were seeds planted in the fertile ground of my soul, ready to grow into a wisdom that would guide my steps. Fur, once a name that evoked fear and desire, was now a symbol of the journey I had undertaken, a reminder that the greatest challenges we face are those we pose to ourselves. Standing at the threshold of this new understanding, I realized that the end of one journey was merely the beginning of another. The world, with all its mysteries and magic, awaited not as a realm to be conquered, but as a landscape to be explored with a heart open to the infinite possibilities of the spirit. As I looked back on the path I had traveled, from the dark recesses of my library to the heart of the enchanted grove, I understood that the true magic was not in the power I wielded, but in the journey I had embarked upon. The dawn of understanding was not just a new day, but a new way of being, a promise of adventures yet to come. The narrative of my encounter with Fur, a tale that began with a summoning, had evolved into a saga of transformation. It was a story not of a sorcerer seeking dominion over the unseen, but of a soul seeking understanding of the unseen within.
I should have known better than to summon Seer on a whim. It's not every day you decide to dabble with a demon known for his rapid delivery service. But there I was, chalk in hand, drawing circles and symbols on my hardwood floor that I was pretty sure would cost a fortune to remove. The things we do for a quick fix, right? The air crackled with anticipation, or maybe it was just static electricity. I never did figure out the heating in this place. With the final incantation, I braced myself for power, for change. What I got instead was an express ticket to Possessionville. Population, me, and now Seer. As soon as he arrived, the sensation was indescribable. It wasn't just that he was inside my head, it was like wearing a pair of shoes that were too tight, if the shoes were your own body. And let me tell you, Seer was the kind of roommate who never did the dishes. Imagine my surprise when things I'd lost started coming back to me. Not in the "oh, there's my favorite lipstick under the sofa" way, but in the "why is my ex-husband standing in my living room asking for a second chance" way. And yes, it was as awkward as it sounds. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. My ex-best friend, the one who could turn any situation into a disaster faster than you can say demonic possession, showed up at my door. With wine, as if alcohol could fix years of backstabbing and betrayal. And to top it all off, I got a call offering me my old job back, the one I'd quit in a blaze of glory, vowing never to return. It seemed Seer's idea of helping was more twisted than a pretzel in a tornado. And that was just the beginning. As I lay in bed that night, trying to ignore the sensation of being crowded inside my own skin. Part 2. You'd think having a demon on board would at least come with some perks, right? Like, I don't know, the ability to make people spontaneously combust with a glare? No such luck. Instead, I got the dubious pleasure of navigating a minefield of my past mistakes, all resurrected with a nightmarish twist, thanks to my new roommate, Seer. The morning after the summoning fiasco, I woke up to find my ex-husband making breakfast in my kitchen. If you're thinking, how sweet, let me stop you right there. Imagine burnt toast, eggs as rubbery as car tires, and coffee so bitter it could double as paint remover. For old time's sake, he said with a smile that made me want to reach for the nearest blunt object. Then, as if on cue, my ex-best friend burst in, her life a walking, talking disaster zone. She was like a hurricane, leaving chaos in her wake. "I missed us," she declared, oblivious to my horror. There I was, sandwiched between betrayal and bad cooking, thinking it couldn't possibly get worse. Oh, but it did. The phone rang with the offer of a lifetime, my old job, the one that had driven me to the brink of insanity. "We've reconsidered your value to the team," my former boss said, as if the last words we'd exchanged hadn't been shouted over slamming doors. Sears' twisted sense of humor was shining through, bringing back everything I'd happily left behind. The day was a blur of awkward conversations and forced smiles. My ex-husband followed me around like a lost puppy, and my ex-best friend treated the whole situation like a reunion tour, complete with embarrassing stories and not-so-subtle digs at my life choices. As night fell, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Sear, silent up till now, seemed to be enjoying the show from his front-row seat in my mind. "You wanted your life back," he whispered, a voice laced with malice and mirth. "Well, here it is. Every twisted, miserable part of it." Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered what I had unleashed. With Sear's idea of help, who needed enemies? The worst part? Part 3. As dawn crept through the curtains, casting a light too cheerful for my current state of affairs, I braced myself for the day ahead. My return to the job I loathed wasn't just a walk down memory lane, it was a marathon on a path littered with broken dreams and office politics. Sear, the ever-present shadow in my mind, seemed to relish my discomfort. Dragging myself to the office, I couldn't help but marvel at the cruel irony of it all. Here I was, a sorceress with the power to summon demons, yet I was powerless to escape the drudgery of TPS reports and mind-numbing meetings. "You wanted everything back," Sear's voice echoed in my head, a reminder of my ill-fated wish. Walking in, I was greeted with fake smiles and insincere welcomes. It was as if I'd never left, the office a time capsule of my past misery. My desk, a monument to monotony, awaited me, piled high with paperwork that screamed welcome back. "We've missed you." The day dragged on, each hour a test of my sanity. Meetings blurred into one another, each more pointless than the last. "Think of it as a form of endurance training," Sear quipped, finding amusement in my torment. His idea of help was beginning to feel more like a punishment. Lunchtime offered no respite. My ex-best friend decided it was the perfect time to catch up, which apparently meant airing every grievance she'd ever had with me. Meanwhile, my ex-husband sent a barrage of texts, each more needy than the last. It was a symphony of dysfunction, conducted by Sear. As the day came to a close, I realized this wasn't just about getting my old life back. It was a twisted lesson in appreciation, a reminder to be careful what you wish for. "Enjoying the ride?" Sear taunted, his voice a constant buzz in the back of my mind. The worst part? I knew this was only the beginning. Heading home, I felt the weight of my decisions crashing down on me. Sear's promise of quick results had come with strings attached, a nightmarish twist on the old adage, "Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it." Lying in bed, the dread of what tomorrow might bring kept me awake. With Sear in control, the possibilities were endless and terrifying. I had to find a way out of this pact, but how? Part 4. The next morning felt like waking up to a bad hangover, except instead of alcohol, my poison was a demon's idea of a cosmic joke. Sear's presence in my mind was a constant, nagging reminder that I was not in control. My life, once my own, now felt like a puppet show with Sear pulling the strings. Facing another day, I mustered what little willpower I had left. The thought of enduring another round of my ex-best friend's chaos and my ex-husband's clinginess, all while navigating the minefield of my resurrected career, was almost too much to bear. "Why me?" I wondered. Sear's reply was swift and unsympathetic, "Why not you?" The office was no sanctuary, it was a battlefield. My inbox was a ticking time bomb of urgent emails, each more demanding than the last. My boss, the king of mixed signals, had mastered the art of saying a lot while communicating nothing. "Remember, this is what you wanted," Sear whispered, his voice dripping with irony. Lunch was a solo affair. My ex-best friend had found a new target for her drama, leaving me in a rare moment of peace. That is until my ex-husband decided it was the perfect time to stage an impromptu "we need to talk" session in the middle of the cafeteria. Public humiliation? Check. As the day spiraled into chaos, a strange sense of clarity began to emerge from the depths of my despair. It wasn't just about enduring the madness Sear had unleashed, it was about understanding it. Each nightmare scenario, each resurrected relic of my past, served as a distorted mirror reflecting parts of myself I had ignored or wished away. Driving home, a plan began to form. If Sear wanted to play games with my life, it was time to change the rules. I had summoned him, and it was within my power to send him back. But first, I needed to confront the reasons behind my wish for a quick fix, the parts of my life I had been too afraid to face head-on. Tonight, I promised myself, ends the reign of Sear. The determination in my voice surprised even me. It was a bold statement, one that would require all my strength and cunning to fulfill. The question was, how do you outsmart a demon who's made your mind his playground? Lying in bed, the plan half-formed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sear was one step ahead. The silence in my mind was unsettling. Had he caught on to my intentions, or was this the calm before the storm? Part 5. The dawn of my day of reckoning arrived with a silence so profound it felt like the world was holding its breath. Today, I would either reclaim my life or be consumed by the very forces I had dared to summon. Sear's silence was unnerving, a stark contrast to his previous taunts and jeers. It was as if he knew what was coming and relished the challenge. I spent the morning in preparation, poring over ancient texts and gathering the necessary ingredients for the banishment ritual. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of the realization that I had brought this upon myself. Sear was not just a demon I had summoned, he was a manifestation of my own weaknesses, my desire for quick fixes and my reluctance to face life's challenges head-on. As I began the ritual, the air around me thickened, charged with anticipation and dread. I could feel Sear's attention focus on me, a predator eyeing its prey. "You think you can rid yourself of me so easily," his voice echoed in my mind, a mix of amusement and scorn. "I am not just a visitor in your life, I am its architect." The ritual was intense, a battle of wills fought on the spiritual plane. With each word I spoke, each symbol I drew, I could feel Sear's grip on my soul weakening. It was a tug-of-war, with my very essence as the prize. Halfway through, I faltered, overwhelmed by doubt and exhaustion. Sear seized the moment, flooding my mind with visions of my failures, my fears, and my losses. It was a nightmare within a nightmare, a final attempt to break me. But instead of succumbing to despair, I found a reservoir of strength I didn't know I had. Each vision, instead of weakening me, steeled my resolve. With a final shout, I completed the ritual. A shockwave of energy erupted from within me, a blinding light in the darkness. When my vision cleared, the silence was complete. Sear was gone, his presence a lingering shadow that quickly faded in the light of my newfound determination. The aftermath was a mixture of exhaustion and euphoria. I had faced my demon, both literally and figuratively, and emerged victorious. But more than that, I had learned a valuable lesson about myself and the dangers of seeking easy solutions to life's complex problems. In the days that followed, my life slowly returned to normal, or at least what passed for normal in the life of a sorceress. My ex-husband and ex-best friend, no longer puppets of Sear's will, drifted back to their own lives, leaving me to rebuild mine. As I lay in bed, now truly alone for the first time since the summoning, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. I had sought to change my life with a summoning and ended up changing it with a banishment. Life, it seems, has a sense of humor. And with that final thought, I drifted off to sleep, a smile on my lips. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it was mine to shape. The story of my encounter with Seer, a journey through darkness to reclaim the light, comes to a close. But who knows what other adventures await in the shadows of the unseen world?